Hello everyone and welcome to History of the Ancient World. Today we're journeying back in time across the sands of the Sahara to a civilization that has captivated the human imagination for millennia, ancient Egypt. When we think of Egypt, what comes to mind? Towering pyramids, enigmatic pharaohs, and golden treasures, right? But the story of this incredible civilization is so much more than just monuments and mummies. It's a tale of innovation, belief, power, and a people's enduring relationship with the life-giving Nile River. For nearly 3,000 years, ancient Egypt was a beacon of culture and strength in the ancient world. So how did it all begin? Let's travel back to around 3100 BC. Before this, the land along the Nile was divided into two kingdoms. Upper Egypt in the south, a land of cliffs and valleys, and Lower Egypt in the north with its vast, fertile delta. Then a legendary figure named Nama, sometimes identified as Menes, accomplished the seemingly impossible. He united these two lands into a single, powerful kingdom, establishing the very first dynasty of pharaohs. This unification wasn't just a political move, it was the birth of a nation. The famous Narmer palette, one of the oldest historical documents in the world, depicts this very event, showing the king wearing the crowns of both Upper and Lower Egypt, symbolizing his absolute rule. This act set the stage for centuries of prosperity and the beginning of what we now call the Old Kingdom. The Old Kingdom, often called the Age of the Pyramids, is perhaps the most iconic period of Egyptian history. This was an era of incredible peace and prosperity, where the central government, led by the pharaoh, had absolute control. The pharaoh wasn't just a king, he was considered a living god, a divine intermediary between the heavens and the earth. His role was to maintain Ma'at, the cosmic order of balance, truth, and justice. If the pharaoh was strong and just, the Nile would flood predictably, the harvest would be bountiful, and the nation would thrive. This divine status gave the pharaohs unimaginable authority, allowing them to marshal the resources and manpower for some of the most ambitious construction projects in human history. And what projects they were! The pyramids are the ultimate testament to the power and vision of the Old Kingdom pharaohs. But they didn't just appear overnight. The concept evolved. It started with mastabas, which were flat-roofed, rectangular tombs made of mud brick. Then, for the pharaoh Djoser, his brilliant vizier and architect Imhotep had a revolutionary idea. He decided to stack several mastabas on top of each other, each one smaller than the one below, creating the world's first major stone building, the Step Pyramid at Saqqara. It was a staircase to the heavens, designed to help the pharaoh's soul ascend to the afterlife. This innovation paved the way for the true pyramids we see at Giza. The Great Pyramid, built for Pharaoh Khufu around 2560 BC, is a masterpiece of engineering. For over 3,800 years, it stood as the tallest man-made structure on Earth. It's built from an estimated 2.3 million stone blocks, some weighing as much as 80 tons. And here's a common misconception to clear up. The pyramids were not built by slaves. Evidence from workers' villages near the pyramids shows they were built by skilled Egyptian laborers. These were dedicated citizens, working for their god king, who were well fed and cared for. They worked in shifts, likely during the Nile's annual flood when farming was impossible, as a form of national service. It was a massive, organized effort that speaks volumes about the administrative genius of the Old Kingdom. These pyramids were more than just tombs. They were resurrection machines, filled with everything a pharaoh would need for the afterlife: food, furniture, and spells from the Book of the Dead to navigate the underworld. However, the immense cost of pyramid building eventually strained the economy. The power of the pharaohs began to wane, and regional governors, known as nomarchs, grew more powerful. This led to the collapse of the Old Kingdom and a period of disunity known as the First Intermediate Period. But Egypt's story was far from over. After about a century of turmoil, the country was reunited, heralding the start of the Middle Kingdom. This era is often called the Classical Age, While there was less monumental pyramid building, there was a flourishing of art, literature, and culture. The pharaohs of this period were seen less as distant gods and more as shepherd kings responsible for the welfare of their people. They focused on administrative reforms, strengthening the borders, and launching major irrigation projects to increase agricultural output. It was an age of stability and cultural richness, producing some of Egypt's most beautiful artworks and profound literary texts. But once again, stability didn't last. Foreign invaders from Asia, known as the Hyksos, took control of Lower Egypt, introducing new military technology like the horse-drawn chariot and the composite bow. Their rule marked the Second Intermediate Period. The Egyptians, however, were resilient. They learned from their conquerors. An Egyptian dynasty based in Thebes eventually mastered this new military hardware, drove the Hyksos out, and established the New Kingdom. And what a kingdom it was! The New Kingdom was the age of empire and Egypt's peak of power. This is the era of the most famous pharaohs. There was Hatshepsut, one of history's most powerful female rulers who reigned as a full pharaoh, often depicted with a male body and a false beard to fit the conventions of kingship. She focused on trade and grand building projects, leaving behind a stunning mortuary temple at Deir el-Bahri. Then came Akhenaten, the heretic pharaoh, who tried to radically transform Egyptian religion. He abandoned the traditional pantheon of gods and promoted the worship of a single deity, the sun disk Aten. He even moved the capital to a new city, Amarna. His revolution was short-lived, however. After Akhenaten's death, his young son, Tutankhamun, ascended the throne. King Tut is famous not for what he did in life, he died around the age of 19 and had a relatively minor reign, but for what he left behind. His tomb, discovered nearly intact by Howard Carter in 1922, provided an unparalleled glimpse into the wealth and splendor of a New Kingdom pharaoh. The golden masks, the jewelry, the chariots, it was a treasure trove that fired the world's imagination. Following Tutankhamun, powerful pharaohs like Ramesses the Great or Ramesses II reasserted Egypt's military might. Ramesses II reigned for an astonishing 67 years, fighting epic battles like the Battle of Kadesh and commissioning more temples and monuments than any other pharaoh, plastering his image across the entire country. His temples at Abu Simbel, carved into a mountainside, are a breathtaking display of royal power. But like all great empires, the New Kingdom eventually declined. A combination of internal struggles, economic problems, and a wave of invasions from groups like the mysterious Sea Peoples weakened Egypt. The once mighty empire began to fracture. Over the following centuries, Egypt was ruled by a succession of foreign powers: Libyans, Nubians, Assyrians, and Persians. The final chapter of ancient Egyptian independence came with the arrival of Alexander the Great in 332 BC. He was welcomed as a liberator from Persian rule. After his death, his general Ptolemy took control, establishing the Ptolemaic dynasty. This dynasty ruled Egypt for nearly 300 years, blending Greek and Egyptian cultures in a fascinating way. The famous city of Alexandria, with its legendary library, became the intellectual and cultural center of the ancient world. The last ruler of this dynasty, and the last pharaoh of Egypt, was the brilliant and charismatic Cleopatra VII. Her ambition and political maneuvering are legendary, but she ultimately failed to save her kingdom from the growing power of Rome. After her death in 30 BC, Egypt became a Roman province, and the 3,000-year-old civilization of the pharaohs finally came to an end. From the unification of two lands to the rise of a global empire, the story of the pharaohs and the pyramids is a truly epic saga. It's a story of human ingenuity, divine belief, monumental ambition, and the eternal cycle of rise and fall. The legacy of ancient Egypt lives on, not just in the stones of the pyramids or the gold of Tutankhamun, but in its contributions to writing, medicine, architecture, and our collective human story. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey through ancient Egypt. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to History of the Ancient World for more adventures into the past. Let me know in the comments which ancient civilization you'd like to explore next. Thanks for watching and see you next time.